Hello, my dears. Daniela here, and welcome to another episode of the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. So you know how they say birds of a feather flock together? Well, that is certainly the case with me and my guest today, Megan Sumrell. Now, Megan and I are in the same mastermind, and she's a time management and productivity coach for women, which, as you guys know, that is just so up my alley. So when she and I met, I immediately knew that I wanted to learn from her because as a business owner and as a mom, I value time above all else. And I am always looking for ways that I can be as productive as possible during my working hours and, really finding that way to balance our home life and our work life. Super, super important. So I just was like, oh my gosh, I have to be friends with and learn from this woman because she obviously has so much to teach. Now, if you are ready for some great advice on how to truly maximize your time and your business, then listen into this episode. So let me just do a quick read of her bio and then we can hop into the episode. Okay, so as a time management and productivity coach for women seeking work-life harmony, Megan teaches specific strategies to help women get on top of their time, calendar, and goals while getting rid of stress, overwhelm, and exhaustion. Her proprietary planning approach is the only feminine planning system that works from the bottom up. It acknowledges that women have a lot on their plates and gives pragmatic, real-world strategies to help women manage all the things. Her courses and planner teach exactly how to plan your weeks and days to maximize productivity and efficiency while still allowing for flexibility and downtime. She's the creator of the Top Program, the Top Planner, a program and planner that teaches her proprietary system and process regarding time management, organization, and productivity for female entrepreneurs. Sounds amazing, right? Okay, my dears. So without further ado, let's go ahead and play that episode. All right, Megan, I am so happy to welcome you to the Spa Marketing Made Easy podcast. We are like birds of a feather. I was
Yes.
like, we're in the same mastermind. When you first showed up, you introduced yourself. I was like, okay, these are my people. This woman's talking about productivity, time management, all the things. Anyone that I can learn that type of stuff from, I just gravitate towards. And so you have been like such a shining light for me and like, okay, what can I learn? What can I absorb to make my life better and easier? And I have learned so many little tidbits and I wanted to bring you on to share with our listeners because productivity, efficiency, calendar management, time blocking, all these things, they affect our business.
Oh yeah, 100%. And our lives. Just day-to-day life.
It's a lot too. And I think that women in general, and I know you work primarily with women, but women in general is who we're speaking to in the spa industry. But we also are the ones who are, for the most part, because I know there's some awesome guys out there too, but for the most part, we are doing the cooking, we're doing the cleaning, we're doing, the majority of the household management relies on us, but we're also running our businesses.
Yeah.
And so it's like, no wonder we feel exhausted.
And I think everybody feels like it's these two buckets. I'm running my business, I'm managing my family, and it's never going to cross paths, which is completely unrealistic, as you know. And so learning the right tools to help you manage both with the understanding that they can't always live in these two completely separate entities. It's a lot. It's a lot to get your head around.
That's why I'll talk a lot about building a business around the life you love, right? Like, what do you want your business to look like? It doesn't have to be a 9-to-5, right? And there's different seasons of life. I'm in a season right now where I have small children, which is crazy, but I know that there's a lot of moms out there, and especially with the pandemic, it's like homeschooling, like all of these added things. And something that has really, really helped me is just putting the same type of structure that I put into our business, I put into our home. And my mom makes so much fun of me about this, but we have a checklist on our fridge of like, these are the cleaning tasks. This is what happens daily, weekly, biweekly, monthly, quarterly. Cause it's hard. It's a lot to manage.
It is. It is. And I think, for me, my journey, I mean, I was in corporate for so long, had over 20 years there. I got married later, started a family later. And I had gone through all the mainstream productivity time management courses that you get in a corporate setting. The consultants would come in. I did all the Franklin Covey courses, all of that. But then when my daughter was born, and now suddenly I've got this career, I'm a mom, and I want to be involved and be able to make choices about my time there. I found that all of the systems and tools that I'd been using prior to her being born weren't working for me, because all of the time management, time blocking strategies that I'd been taught were all being taught in for lack of a better way, a more masculine way, where it was this assumption of you are now in your office and you are in work mode for 8 to 10 uninterrupted hours. So let me teach you how to be productive at work. And while those tools served me for years, all of a sudden, when I was now juggling all these additional responsibilities, I found they no longer served me, because my life was no longer in a place where I could just go put on one hat and sit in that place for 9 hours. Like, that's just not my reality anymore.
Let's unpack that a little bit, because that's really interesting. How would you describe the difference between masculine time management and feminine time management?
And it's funny. It's a newer concept that's come to me, as people are like, well, what makes your approach different? And finding the right way to really describe it. Most of the productivity or time management courses, and even project management, they tend to start what I call top down. So they'll say, okay, what is the goal? What is the big picture that you're working on? Maybe you've got this project that you have coming up, or maybe you've got a big launch in your spa coming, like you've got this big thing. And then we break it down. Okay, so let's reverse engineer this. Where do you need to be 3 months from now, 2 months from now, 1 month from now? And then we build out all the things that need to get done. And then they almost kind of go do it. Whereas when you are in the day-to-day grind, I mean, I even think of you now, particularly people with littles at home, where every 5 seconds, mom, the phone's ringing, there's a text going. You're not in this bubble of an office setting where you leave your life and go to work for 10 hours. If you don't know how to control that and to get some time management basics in place, you can create the most beautiful strategic plan for how to go reach that goal, but you're never going to get into step one if you don't know how to create the space in your day to do that first task. So my approach is, I call it bottom up, where we start with, okay, let's get some fundamentals of how do you manage your task list, your calendar, apply the right structure to it, so that we get a handle on our days to get rid of distractions and overwhelm, so that now we have the space to go take those big projects and say, with feeling confident, yeah, I can get this done in 3 months, because now I know how to get it into my life.
So with calendar management, I could talk about this for like 10 hours.
I think we could.
Because I do a big calendar audit every year. Mm-hmm. And we typically, Annie, my director of operations, and we do our annual planning usually in like August, September. And my approach is the first thing that I do is I go through the entire year. I block off all the holidays. So anytime that my husband, because he's active duty military, right? So he has off like Veterans Day, President's Day, so anytime that he has off work, I block off work, because I don't want to miss that, right? So I block that off. My kids' birthdays, all that kind of stuff. Then I do vacations. Then I do exercise. And then I put in like commitments for our programs. And then I try and set our goals. But even with that, I still feel I think what I do and what I imagine that probably 90% of women out there do is I don't give myself enough time I'm like, yeah, of course I could do 7 podcasts in a day.
Right. And at that moment, and that's the thing, in that moment when you were planning it, you could. But what happens between that moment and then the day that hits is 8 million other things get put into our lives. Now there's a dentist appointment and a doctor's appointment, and now there's the school party and the this and the that. And so we look at our calendar with all this white space when we're planning 12 months out, without recognizing a lot of that white space is going to be eaten up by life outside of our businesses as well.
So, and the thing is, you were talking about the masculine approach and the ability to be gone for 10 hours a day and all of that. And a lot of spa owners, they are out of the office.
Yep.
But I think that the distinction is like, yes, you can be at work, but your mind is still also at
your mind
home,
is there, and
about the cleaning.
Who's going to get the phone call when the kid is sick? Who's going to, that's, I mean, for me in our household, that's going to be me. And so, like you said, even though, when I was still in a corporate setting before running my own business, like you said, my mind was always there a little bit, and that phone would ring and it'd always be that panic of, oh God, is it the school? And not that men don't love their children. Of course they do. It's just, we're just different. We're innately different. And it's kind of, everyone knows I've got that. And so just as like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this or not, but like it'd be the night where when my daughter was, little, and it would be, okay, you're on deck to get up if the baby cries tonight. Like I would sleep so much better because I mentally knew that responsibility was now handed off to somebody else.
So here's a shout out to my husband, because since August, he has been in charge of Luca in the night.
That's amazing.
That's it. I said, I'm done. I'm sorry. I'm getting up twice to pump.
Yeah.
I don't want to get up to get the baby. So he has really taken ownership of that. But what I had to learn was that I had to ask for that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Always.
Here's what I need to make our household work. And he is more than willing to do whatever he can do to support me. He just needs to know what that is.
And why women were so bad at this, I wish I'd learned sooner. I just felt like, well, if I look miserable enough, certainly no. And then it's the same thing. First time I asked was like, well, sure. Like, God, why didn't I do that 2 years ago?
Yeah, no. And he really has taken ownership. And actually Luca goes to bed so much better with Kyle than he does with me. Like,
interesting.
He just, daddy,
Yeah.
Okay. So when we're talking about goal setting, calendar management, I know another piece for me, and I don't know if this comes up for other women, but I imagine that it does. It takes me a minute to get into what people call the flow, right?
Oh,
so
yeah.
if I have a goal and you talk about like 5 hours a week that you've got to commit to this goal, right? You hear a lot of, self-help people, Tony Robbins, Rachel Hollis, like those types of people saying, yes, you've got to dedicate 5 hours a week to accomplishing whatever this goal is. If I do 1 hour, 5 days a week, I'm going to get maybe 2.5 hours of work done. But if I did 5 hours in a block of time, I'll probably get a solid 4 hours done to get into the flow. So with this new, with the reality of, phone calls and schools and all of that, do you have any advice for women to help get into the flow faster, or different ways to do things that can really maximize that time?
Yeah. And the first is, I would say the most important thing I would encourage everyone to do is to go through. People may be familiar with a time audit where you're actually tracking, what you were doing each day and how you were doing it. I add another spin on it, and I encourage people to do what I call an energy audit, where over the course of a week, as you go about, every couple hours, check in with yourself and track, am I in high productivity? Am I in high energy, or am I low? And I like to track both from a creative space and a very tactical space. And a lot of people think they know themselves, like, oh, I'm a morning person. Oh, I'm a night owl. But it's you uncover a lot about yourselves when you go through one of these energy audits. And so I do mine about every 6 months, and mine really hasn't changed much in the last few years. But for me, I know creative work has to be done before 11 a.m. If I try and do it after 11 a.m., I can do it, but it's going to easily take me twice as long. Mm-hmm. Now, tactical work, I can do really well at any time of the day, like tech, that because I like it, and the creativity takes more brain power for me. Now, what's hard is I am drawn to the tactical. I mean, I was a math major. I did math, statistics. I like that stuff. So first thing in the morning, we're drawn to doing what we like to do. So I'm drawn to doing all that tactical work. I can get in flow state with the work I like in 2 minutes. I cannot get in a flow state with creative as easily. And so when you learn these about yourself, you can apply how you're scheduling what you're doing and when. So even though I would prefer to sit down and hit my desk and jump into tactical mode, I know if I have creative projects, I have to say, okay, from 9 to 10:30, I'm doing creative, because if I don't do it then, it will take me twice as long in the afternoon, and it takes me longer to get into my flow state in the afternoon as well.
So doing the hardest thing first.
And for some people, it isn't the hardest thing. That's what's important for you to know about yourself. I have a good friend who is uber creative, and that's not hard for her, but she has found she struggles with it in the afternoon. So it's a perfect marriage for her, because she's like, oh, great. I wake up and I get to do the things I love to do, because that's the time that I'm best served doing it. So for me, it's like a treat. My afternoon work hours, which I finish work at 2:40 every day. But my afternoon work time from lunchtime till then is the tactical stuff I love that doesn't take me as long to get into that flow state. So that way I'm not only managing how I'm spending my time, I'm managing when I'm spending it to maximize my productivity as well. So if you know you don't have 5 hours to just sit and do for a big project, make sure that when you're breaking it up, you are giving yourself the times of day that are best for you for that type of work. So that way you're not wasting half of it trying to get into the groove.
So I see your sign back here that says busy is not productive. Yes. And, talking about time audits and all of these things, one of our gals in Growth Factor did a time audit, and she was like, I spend half my day on email. And I was like, okay, that's
an easy problem to solve.
Right. But it's like, you've got to delegate, get out of your inbox. And for me, I have removed myself from email as much as possible, because I used to have that issue too. And now I'm like, okay, I have 30 minutes a day that I look at my inbox, and that's it. And
I do that 4 times a day, because I still do my own email.
Oh, do you?
I do. Okay. Yeah. But I'm in and out. Like the longest email chunk time for me is my first one in the morning, because I end work so early. I have a lot that queues up, and I have a lot of overseas clients. So, their work day is happening when I'm sleeping. So in the morning, it's about 20 to 25 minutes that I have a system I go through to process my email inbox. And I actually have 3 email accounts that I go through and process. I then check in again, kind of right before lunch. I check in as I wrap up my work day. And then I do a mini email process in the evening, but it's just is there anything urgent that's going to derail my plan for tomorrow? Otherwise, it just sits until the morning. But those other 3, I'm in and out of there in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I think it's just even having a process for email is so important. But I think something that I've done is, okay, I've got to focus on what's my top priority for the day. And I do that first, because I'm most productive in the morning. Oh. And I'm an early riser. I'm up at usually 5:30 every day.
So we are the same person.
Yes. So I wasn't a math major. No, I'll leave that to the hubs. But for me, like I'm an early riser, I'm most productive in the morning. And I know that if I push something to the afternoon, it can take me twice as long.
Exactly.
And so I do the things like email. I do that in the afternoon, right? Because it's not something that's going to take a lot of creative brain power.
Yeah.
It's something that I don't really have to, respond, forward, whatever I need to do.
Yep. And with the, when you're talking about the prioritizing, so one of the acronyms I like to use with people when we're talking about just that massive, and I like to use the term backlog instead of task list, because the minute you say a to-do list or task list, we get into that panic mode of like, I have to do it now. Well, we can't do everything now. And I always tell people if everything is important, then nothing's important. Like there's got to be a rank order of importance here. So I just always like to call it my backlog. Here's a list of all the things, and I'm not going to get all them done today or tomorrow or even this month, but I need to know what's most important there. So when I'm looking at my backlog, I always tell people you need to learn how to cope with your task list. And COPE stands for it needs to be centralized. So you've got to have one place that if I were to say, hey, let's go look at all the things that you've got to figure out when you're getting done. If you need to pull up an app, your notebook, some scrawls on the back of an envelope in the kitchen and go grab the napkin out of your car that you took, like that's already, you've lost a ton of brain power and time of just trying to collect it all. So the first step is pick where you're going to centralize it and have that. And
can that be like a project management software even for, and I think that in business we use those so much, but even to manage your home life.
I use Trello for everything. So like my master backlog, that lives in Trello. A lot of people like Monday.com or ClickUp. You could just use, depending upon what your personal, some people might do okay with paper, but when it comes to business, if you've got a project management tool, leverage that to be that backlog for you, because now you can just turn it into tasks and, automations and all of that. So once you've got it centralized, then the O for COPE is organized. And what I mean by that, I'll use the analogy of, maybe you've got that drawer in your kitchen, the one that you really can't quite open. It's got all the crap in it. And you're like, I know there's tape in there. And if I could just get it open, I can find it somewhere. So instead, maybe you can have that junk drawer. And I'm pretty anal about, everything in my drawers has bins with labels in them, including in my kitchen. So I know if I can open it, this is where the tape is. So when people are like, what do you mean by an organized task list? I'm like, think about that. You may have a system and all of it's in there. But then if I were to say to you, hey, go show me, what are all the tasks that you have for this project? Do you have it labeled in there and organized in a way that you can find what you're looking for quickly? Because that'll just help you save time. And you can leverage color coding, labeling, even, sub lists. There's a million ways to do it, but it can't just be sitting there in one big pile because then everything looks equal. Mm-hmm. Then with the P part of it is prioritized. So if you're like me, my backlog is enormous. I'll listen to a podcast, be like, oh, that's such a great idea. I want to implement that in my business. It goes on my backlog. Anything and everything goes there. And then every week and every month, I'm reviewing it to say, okay, do I need to shift my priorities?
I think that's so, because we're talking about backlog. How many times have you read a book? Have you seen, and like, oh, I would love to do this. And then you forget about it because if you don't write it down. So having that place that you can just go back,
dump it. Mm-hmm. And like, I tend to get most of mine when I'm out running, because that's usually what I'm doing, kind of personal business development. And that's why, again, I love Trello is I can just pull out my phone in my run and through voice commands, add something to my backlog. So right there, as I hear it, I'll pause the podcast and be like, okay, put this on there, blah, blah, blah. And then it just gets on the board. And then I can rest at night because my brain isn't trying to remember all those great ideas that I had. Mm-hmm. So when you've got it there, that you need to make sure if you've got 200 things on your backlog, you know what your top priorities are, so that when you pull it up, I would rather get one thing done for the day that was the most important than 18 things that were just low-hanging fruit that really don't matter.
Mm-hmm.
And so having that prioritization in place comes into play when you're setting up your plans. And then the final, the E, I made up my own word just because I think it sounds better. So I'll say centralized, organized, prioritized, and estimized, but estimated. Because those top items on there, it is so easy to look at something and be like, I can knock that out in like an hour. But then when you sit down to do it, it's like, and that was 4 hours. And usually it's because we don't take the time to take a step back and think through from start to finish, what is everything this really entails.
I make that mistake with my team all the time. I'm like, hey, we could do this. And they're like, yeah, but that's like a million little tasks that need to get done.
And another interesting thing with estimating, you'll love this. You'll geek out on this one because it's all the brain science with it as well. And someone taught me this years ago. I was like, and then I tried it and I went, okay, this works. I tend to I used to do a lot of estimating like Monday morning or like, I'm a morning person like you. Well, because I would sit down and do my estimating, like Monday morning is my most productive time ever. I'm rested from the weekend. I'm slept well. My creative juices are flowing. I'm a morning person. Well, guess what energy I'm bringing to my estimates? If I'm estimating how long it's going to take me to do something, I'm bringing the energy I'm currently in to my estimate. Mm-hmm. So if I were to do that task right there in that moment on Monday morning, I could probably get it done in 2 hours. But if the reality of it is I'm not doing it till Friday afternoon, it's probably going to take me 4 hours to do.
Yeah.
So I always try and do my estimating now, like midweek, midday, if I'm running an estimating session for myself. So that way I'm kind of bringing just an even keel energy, productivity aspect to my estimates. And I find they're far better now. And so I always tell people working with teams, don't do your big team planning estimating first thing coming in off the weekend, because that's the estimates everyone's going to bring to the table. And then they're going to go implement it later in the day and it's going to take a lot longer.
Oh man. Okay. Note to Annie.
Or even just shift it to one company I just worked with. They've just shifted it to 10:30 in the morning. So at least people have had a chance, to kind of settle in a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. Okay. So give me one piece of advice, one tip that an esthetician, spa owner can put in practice right now to make them more productive, to save them time.
It may not be what most people think is very popular, but I think it is one of the most important things, particularly for women business owners. We will, by default, go straight to our to-do list. We will look at our calendar and we will fill it in. And then in the back of our head, we'll say, I'll give myself the time I need for whatever form of downtime, self-care, whatever you want to call it. I'll squeeze it in or I'll take the leftovers. And if you are waiting for the leftovers or waiting to squeeze it in, you will never have it, or you'll get so burnt out that then you'll be coming at it from a place of just frustration and exhaustion. And so when I'm going through my planning, the first thing that goes in my calendar are those, what I call my non-negotiable commitments, the appointments. You have to be at work from this hour to this hour. You're seeing clients, whatever. The second thing that goes on my calendar is what I call my unavailable time, which means I'm not working per se, but I'm busy being busy in life. So like my daughter ends her school day at 3, from 3 until after dinner, it's just blocked on my calendar as unavailable. I'm not accomplishing anything for work. I'm not really accomplishing anything around the house. I'm just being present with my family. Mm-hmm. So once I put in those non-negotiables and my unavailable, the next thing that goes on my calendar each week is the time for myself. Mm-hmm. And so I am moving that way up in my list of priorities. And I make sure that every couple of days, I've got a pocket of time. Sometimes it's even only 30 or 45 minutes that is clearly blocked off and reserved for me to do whatever I need to do in that moment. Then everything else goes in after that. But because I've learned to prioritize that early and often and then honor it, I can get a lot more done in my working hours than I would if I were working straight from start to finish.
I love that. Yeah, I think the unavailable time is really important too, because as someone who I kind of live and breathe by my calendar, when you see it's like, oh, can you just put something there?
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't want to. I want to have family time.
Yeah. And it's how we get really unrealistic with what we can do. Because even if you're, on your calendar, even if it was, you're telling yourself, oh yeah, I'm not free from 3 to 6. If you see what I just call that white space there that's open, when you're looking at what can I get done today, even though your head's going, remember, you can't work from 3 to 6, all you're seeing is all that available time.
Open.
Like, I can get it done. So I block it off with a blue part that just says, and then some days it's like, hey, my daughter comes home and she's working on a project with a friend or something online, and I find I have 30 minutes. Well, then great. That's just an added gift. And now I can go work ahead on my list for tomorrow. But women in particular, just recognizing we can't be in intentional productivity every single minute of the day. There are going to be parts of our day where we look back on it. I mean, every day I'm like, I don't know what the hell I did from 3 to 6, but I was doing things. But I know that because that's the rhythm of life we're in right now. And so then I'm not going to, at the end of the week, feel like I didn't get enough done because I didn't try and overplan.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. Overplanning is...
It's real.
It's an ongoing, we've got to learn to underplan. That's what we've got to learn to do.
Yeah. And again, with the productivity, the other piece I would tell people, and particularly with seeing clients, and I'm sure you guys do this, is have intentional spaces between, even if it's just 10 minutes. It's the back to back to back to back. I mean, I know that's why you probably do the same calls. If you book a call on my calendar, it's either for 25 minutes or 50 minutes, never for the full hour, so that I can have a hot minute to decompress, to get a cup of water, to whatever. And on days I'm working on big projects that's super brain intensive, I make sure I leave a full 30 minutes on my calendar between anything else coming after it as well, because that's what allows me to stay pretty even instead of just, collapsing at the end of the day.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, so good. So many good things. And I know it's like one of those topics that people are like, you really could talk about calendars, but it's our life. It's like it's so important to managing the things that our energy for the things that we can actually get done in a day.
And when you can learn how to control your calendar instead of letting your calendar control you, it is just the most freeing feeling ever. And one of the things you've got to be comfortable doing is just saying no.
No is a complete sentence.
It is. And for people, I'm down in the South, a lot of ladies here, they're like, this doesn't sound nice. I'm like, well, then you can say, I'm sorry, I can't. Period. You don't ever have to give a why. We do not have to explain to others our choices.
Love that. Okay. So for our listeners, where can they find you, follow you, stay in touch? Tell us all the things.
I am easy to find everywhere because it's just Megan Sumrell. So my website's megansumrell.com, Facebook, Megan Sumrell, Instagram, Megan Sumrell. And if you are ever finding yourself in a place of just feeling overwhelmed, you're like, okay, I don't even know where to start. I've got so much. I've got a great little worksheet, kind of cheat sheet that helps walk you through the process of getting yourself out of overwhelm. And you can grab that at theworklifeharmony.com or tune into my podcast, which is also Work Life Harmony.
Perfect. And we'll get all that linked up underneath in the show notes here. Thank you, Megan, so much for your time.
Such a pleasure.
I want you guys to go out there and do some calendar audits. Put that unavailable time on there. That's
game changer.
That's what I'm going to do next. Going to go do my own calendar on it. Going to make my time unavailable. And I think I know that it allows you to be more present in the things that you're actually doing. I feel
100%.
like when I give myself the space, I show up in a bigger way for my clients. I show up in a bigger way for my kids. I can really be present in the thing it is that I'm doing instead of thinking about the 700 other things. So it's such an important piece. Perfect. All right, you guys. Well, if you want to keep the conversation going, please head on over to the Spa Marketing Made Easy Facebook group. Tag me in there. We can talk about all things productivity, time management, and I will catch you on the next episode.